Why, hi there, it's me, it's Uncle Ron, and it's time for yet another low energy mailbag. And I had the questions all there, and then I hit the record button, and it refreshed. So let's do another low energy mailbag. First question comes from Tim, and these are all from people who belong to my Retro Sports Network Facebook group. Just look for Retro Sports Network on Facebook and join the group if you haven't already. We'll get you in, and then you can participate in more low energy mailbags and find out when I'm streaming and all that. Ron, do I believe Dave Gardner's bad luck with his Roger Clemens 1986 replay was just that, or do some of the games not have the correct stats or method to make pitchers as strong as their real life stats? I think in this case, I think getting Clemens right was probably a graduate level course. The 86 Red Sox, I looked this up last night, or a 95 win team in real life. And to me, that seems almost impossible. They won games on wild pitches, pass balls, hit by pitches. I mean, they just won a lot of games by sheer luck. And if you look at their Pythagorean record, they were a 91 team in 1986. Would you believe that Don Baylor actually led the Red Sox in home runs with 31? They smashed 320 doubles, but they were, I believe, mid-range in runs scored and mid-range in home runs. This was not, and they couldn't steal. They just absolutely cannot steal. And so to try to get them enough offense to win Clemens games, I think is kind of tough. The other thing is that you get a couple bad dice rolls, it's just game over for Clemens. They're not giving him a large margin of error. I mean, he did the one in them with the revised Strat 86 cards, and they were 20 games under 500. They shouldn't do it. I honestly think that in order to get the 86 Red Sox right, that you kind of have to play every game. And so, no, I don't think it was a carding thing. I think he did it with payoff pitch, and I believe there's a tough on a 7, which is going to be your most common roll. He will give up his fair share of home runs. If I was to do a Clemens start replay, Appa, I think would get him close just because he's going to be an A, and probably with the strikeout letter there. And they're, like I said, it's getting their offense right. I think it's going to be the tough thing with Clemens. And remember, he also started 14-0, which was pretty remarkable, if you ask me, even at the time. I believe he went into mid-June before his first loss. So it's one of the things I think that comes up with carding pitchers. You know, I think if you played that out in Strat on cards and dice, I think you would be there. They also were so weak at shortstop, center field. I mean, the team that started the year is very different, kind of like in 04. Very different from the one that ends the year. And, of course, you know, they got one strike away from winning the World Series. And all honesty, they should never gotten past the Angels. And if you really want to be honest, I'm not sure they should have gotten past the Yankees and the Blue Jays to begin with. So, long story short, I just think that if you do something 100 times, you're going to get one where he seriously overperforms, and you're going to get what Dave got. And so, but that is a tough one to get right. I know that that Big Clue is currently doing 68 Danny McClendon having a little bit better luck. But yeah, to try to get the 86 Red Sox and Clemens where they should be, that's a graduate level project to take on. Okay. Now, Mike from the truck asks, how many licks does it take to get to the center? To the Tootsie Roll center of a Tootsie Roll Pop? The answer is 3. Actually, let's ask Google, shall we? In fact, when you start typing it, it's the first thing that pops up. Now, according to Wikipedia, the unimpeachable source of record, a student study by Purdue University concluded that it took an average of 365 licks. You could lick once per day and not get to the center of a Tootsie Roll Pop. To get to the center of a Tootsie Pop using a licking machine. Leave that innuendo as you will. Well, it took an average of 253 licks when tried by 20 students. So the answer, Mike, is between 253 and 365. Or 3. And personally, I'm a fan of the chocolate Tootsie Roll Pop. Orange and cherry being my second favorite. Although I was never big a fan of chocolate-covered cherries. Some schmuck from Eastern Massachusetts asks, how do you prepare for a low-energy broadcast? And the answer is, I watch a Dave Gardner chat. Mike says, first time, long time. No, it's not. I always want to know what your favorite PC game and what your least favorite PC game is and why. I will hang up and listen. We've been over this before. You've asked this question before. My favorite PC game is Mia Hamm Baseball. No. And you know that because you've asked that before. My favorite PC game growing up was Micro League Baseball. I think I've answered that before. Just because it was actually someone else about the first replay I ever did coming up. It really was my introduction to not cards and dice, but simulated baseball outside of championship baseball, which was a baseball card game actually made by Topps and Milton Bradley, which I bought in 1983, as a matter of fact. So Micro League was the one that got it started for me, and someone picked up the 84 and then the season disc when it was on a 5.5 inch or 5.25 inch floppy, and the 85 season disc and the box score and team generator. So I remember that was the first one that I remember building my own rosters, and that was quite cool. And it reminds me a lot of Pro Strategy Football in the sense that things were, there was actual stats that you could put in, but the speed and stuff was all in a 1 to 5. So that was great. So you had to guess what it was. Only the one stadium, which I always thought was Dodger Stadium. What was my least favorite game? Is there one that I don't want to talk about games that are currently in print. A least favorite. I'm not quite sure I've actually ever played a sports game that I really didn't truly like. There's one that if you ask me in a DM, I will gladly give you the answer to. Least favorite as a kid, which I know is not what you're asking. Pac-Man for the Atari. It was terrible. I mean, if I know that the Atari had the computer range of nothing, but was so disappointed, bought it new. I bet that's how I answered this the last time you asked it too. We had a pool game that was pretty good, and of course, if you played Pitfall on the Atari, that was pretty good. So the Pac-Man was extremely disappointing. On the PC, boy, if I played it more than once or twice, I must have liked it, because there's a lot of games I played over the years. Again, I actually have an honest answer. I'm not going to say in public. DM me. All right, Andy says Action PC Football versus Second and 10 versus Pro Strategy Football pluses and minuses. Okay, Second and 10 Football, best value in the sport as far as simulation is concerned, because you get everything all at once in 5,000 college teams. So you get 90 some odd pro seasons, 5,000 free college teams, all the USFL. It is a drier game, I suppose. I think the biggest minus is that the usage things just kind of limit you to some degree. But beyond that, you really can't beat the value. You get both the college and the pro game at the same time. And I really like it. And you can turn on the dice rolls. So it really is a card and dice sim that does all the accounting on a computer. And I actually played First and 10, which was do the math on the charts. Second and 10 is a much deeper game than people think. The cons for that, or the minuses for that, the graphics could use an upgrade. Again, the usage limits, kind of takes you on what you can and what you can't do. If someone's limited to 1 or 2 catches per game, if they're covered, then you really can't complete anything more to them. The AI will learn what you're doing. But I would rank that as my favorite football game. Action PC, again, Dave updates it every year. It is a very good game. If you're a hardcore football fan, I would say that would be the game for you. You can do pretty much anything with it. Call offenses, call extraordinary defenses. The seasons are cheap. The graphic, he did a good job with the chalkboard again. That's good. The minuses for me, I've had some issues with the game. Players will disappear from time to time. Hopefully that has gotten fixed. It is, again, a really good hardcore football simulator, and I'm not really a hardcore football fan. The stats are dead on, and you can buy, and the seasons are relatively cheap. They go on sale often. I don't think you can go wrong with it. Of the 3 that you've asked, it is my third favorite game, and I haven't bought it in a while. Probably won't buy it again in the near future. Again, I only can play so many games at a time. If you've never bought it, it comes highly recommended, and there's always stuff on sale. You can find it. It is probably Dave's deepest game. You can go really crazy with it. Pro Strategy Football, best animation of the 3. The modding community has over 70 some odd seasons. It's the cheapest of the 3. It's probably the least sim-like of the 3 because everything is rated on a 1 to 5 basis. Not sure how much that's going to change. The results are going to be pretty good. You can get as crazy with it as you want, or you can just let things play out. There's not a lot of minuses for that unless you're looking. It's not going to have Madden graphics. It does look like Tecmo Bowl. You can. There's also a career mode, which I really haven't played with. Not sure what the minuses are. Again, I don't play a lot of football. All 3 are good games. I think it depends on what you're looking for. As I said, Action PC I think is the deepest. Second and 10 is the most card and dice friendly, and Pro Strategy Football has the best visuals of the 3. Plus, you can stop and get highlights of other games. In that, it depends on what experience you're looking for. Pro Strategy Football is the cheapest of the 3. Again, all 3, whatever one you want, you really can't go wrong with any of them. Second and 10 would be my preference, just because it's more of a card and dice based game. But again, nothing against what Kerry Batts has done with Pro Strategy Football and what Dave and his folks have done with Action PC. John asks, what's the very first replay you ever did ever? For instance, when he first got Strat when he was 9 years old, my brother and I bought a bunch of different teams from a few different years. We played a mixed season replay. I still have the original stat book from it. A good question. I would say Championship Baseball was the first card and dice game I ever bought, but they only came with the 2 teams, and you didn't realize that you could do solitaire stuff with that. In the mid-'80s, Micro League, I think, would be there once we got the ability to save stats with that. My best friend from elementary and the first high school, and I played that a ton, but I wouldn't have called that a replay per se. Around 87-ish, I got a copy of Avalon Hill's NBA computer game, which I think is essentially was just Status Pro. Very limited graphics and all that. And it came with 20 great teams, one of them being the 85-86 Celtics. And I think that was the first one that actually took around and played against everyone else. I don't remember what it was. I know that the speed of the computer seriously limited about what you could do for an offense. So those games were, if I was manually playing out a Celtics game, it would probably be score in the high 80s with a good defense, and the computer was playing the game. It would be a regular NBA game. I think that would be that. I think the first draft league I did was in college. We bought the 1990 season for Strat at KB Toy, and did a draft league, and I finished, I think, 4th or 5th that first year. But that was a lot of fun. So I would say that the NBA one was that we dabbled around with things, but that would be what I would consider my first genuine replay would be the NBA one. Dave asks, "What's my most memorable stream?" Jeez, there's been so many. The Mendoza Dodgers Pirates game in '78 when Mendoza comes off and completes a season sweep, Pirates over the Dodgers. Obviously, some of the interviews that you and I have done over the years live, I think that would be there. The Dave Stegman game in '78 when the scrub for the Tigers keeps them in the race the last couple of weeks of the season. That was absolutely nuts because he did everything. Fred Sanford nearly no-hitting the Dodgers in Game 5 of the '49 series. That was pretty memorable. The whole '85 postseason with baseball because the Blue Jays nearly blew it. Obviously not just one stream with that. We've had just so much fun over the last 5.5 years with that. Never call a no-hitter. Maybe the one that just kind of made me laugh a bit inside was the Game 5 of the '78 American League Championship Series. The Yankees with Ron Guidry fresh against the Rangers in New York, and Guidry's gone by the third. I smiled a bit at that one. So that's a lot of different answers. I don't know if I have one that's most memorable. There might be 10 that I would kind of put in there. And we've had a lot of good ones. David, the Punster asks, do you think it's better to stream a project you really like or one you think most viewers would like? I've done both, and I've now kind of gone for ones I really like. I think I'll use Gardner as an example. You can tell when he's doing APA hockey or APA football that he really, really enjoys what he does, and it kind of comes through where you're watching. And so, starting with the baseball stuff especially, those are the ones that I enjoy the most, and so I think those are the ones I do the better job on and feel relaxed, and I think that hopefully that comes across as that way. So I would answer a project that I really like. They're going to pay attention to what you do. If you do as many as I know that you do, a weekly game of the week and stuff like that. But if you do something 2 or 3 times a week like I do, understand that not everyone's going to watch every single moment of every single game, but it's going to be there and it's going to be consistent, and I think it just kind of goes through on both ends. So that was how I would answer that. I would be a project I really like. I've done stuff that viewers like, and I end up enjoying some of it. It's not that, but it would be, I prefer to do stuff that I like to do. People want to see me do more football. Glenn asked 3 professional athletes that I did not see play that you'd want to have a chat with. And he's not, now I'm in my 50s, so I've seen a lot. So that's kind of a hard one because most of the people that I that did not see play aren't with us. Having said that, I'm going to sneak in John Beliveau, number 1, because I never saw him play firsthand. He retired right when I was born. And he has become one of my favorite hockey players. So he would be number 1. Who would I choose for baseball? I'm thinking of a pitcher. I guess Koufax would be the default answer, and I never saw him. But that's not who I would... obviously, Ted Williams, I think, would be one. He retired long before there, and just to rack his brain about hitting and stuff like that. There's not a lot of video of Ted that's out there, which is too bad because They've been very interesting. I mean, when he did the thing at the '99 All-Star game at Fenway, I mean, that was just. Okay, and the third. So I said John Beliveau, Ted Williams. Again, it's something. It's tough because I did not see play. I'm trying to think of a golfer that I didn't see because I saw Palmer and '86 Nicklaus winning the Masters. I certainly watched that. I'm gonna cheat and say Peter Allis, who I certainly watched on television growing up as an announcer, but was a pretty good player in his own right in the UK. Ryder Cup captain, I think, a couple times, and was a pretty good golfer in the UK well before the Pro Tour came to England, just because he could, the stories that he would be able to tell you about this, that, and the other thing. Just never dull. So that's the answer. So, Jean Beliveau, Ted Williams, and Peter Allis. Jeffrey asks, if you could name 3 of your favorite teams to put in a time capsule, which ones would they be? Well, the '04 Red Sox, the '93 Canadians, because that was the last cup, and I want to say the '75-'76 Islanders. I did a complete replay with those, and I got them to the Stanley Cup Finals. And so that was before they got really good. I mean, that's Brian Trottier's rookie year, and they're very green, and I don't know if they realized how good they are going to be. But Mike Bossy isn't there yet, and it's Bossy and Butch Goring, I think, that put them over the top. But that I learned to really enjoy that team, and Brian Trottier. You know what? Did I see Trottier play? I probably did, and so I can't count him. Who can hit a righty? Not me. Wade Boggs, Ted Williams, Tony Gwynn. They can hit righties. So thanks for those questions, Jeff. Rich asks, real life lineups, yes or no? I think it depends on what you're doing. It's easier. Let me slide this up and down here. It's easier when you're parachuting in and out of things like I do in Action PC to use real life lineups because you don't really have to think about it. They've used them the rest of the time that you go back and forth, and it just makes it easier to make decisions. My general rule of thumb for that is even if you completely are awful, I'm going to give you 3 at-bats. Also because with the rosters, it just makes the bullpens easier to know who you got and who you don't know. If I'm doing a card and dice on my own, sometimes yes and sometimes no. I think that there's some great what-ifs that you could do. Caglignero in 67. What happens if he doesn't get a hit? Do you play Rice in the 75 series against the Reds? Especially if you're doing a thing that where you think you can do better with a team than what happened in real life. Jiggle it all up. But the ones that you see generally are as played for baseball just because it's easier that way. It's less decisions. Although, if you've watched my stuff, you know that in the postseason, I create my own lineup. Some of it's based on what I've seen because I've seen everyone play. And others, you just kind of go by feel. Last year, I did offline, but posted the screenshots of a mythical 7-game series between the Bruins and the Vegas last year. And apparently they followed my advice this year because they went with Jeremy Swayman, and they're playing in the second round of the playoffs. And I used Ullmark in Game 1 against Vegas. Vegas won. I switched to Swayman in Game 2 and never lost. So I think the answer is it depends. I'm not married to either one. You see me do in baseball more than real life. As carded is fun too, which you can do in Strat. So do I worry about how many heads will explode in this great country if I don't? No. It's always been mantra, your game, your rules. If you want to use a DH in a non-DH season, go for it. Connie Mack would approve because he tried to do it in 1910. Jeff also asks, what advice would I give to someone who's interested in starting a YouTube channel to stream games? Don't overstream. Record your first stuff and show us what interests you. So if there is a particular project or two that you really want, don't share everything. You can overshare. Then you get burnouts. But if there's like one or two things that you're really, really excited about, do it. And I would choose computer over tabletop to start with, just because computer will stream easier. Everything can be seen there. Cards and dice to show is really, really difficult, and the best at them have a hard time getting it right, or it's taken them years to figure out how to make it look seamless. So if you were to start, I would not do cards and dice unless you have a couple really good cameras. And again, pick a project that you are most passionate about, because as someone asked up there earlier, that does come through. People will want to watch what you really, really care about. BJ asks, what is my favorite digital version of a tabletop game? It can be anything. It doesn't have to be a tabletop sports game necessarily. Strat basketball. I know it doesn't play exactly like the card and dice game, but that is somehow, some way, some reason that game just clicks with me. It's just, I think, because there's enough decisions to be made in the game that I can visualize what it is I'm trying to see. And when I do a card and dice game, I try to let my imagination go as far as possible. Second and 10 is right up there, because that in its heart is a card and dice game. I really enjoy playing roster card, doing it right now in Digital Diamond. But as far as it'd be the Strat family. Second and 10 would be up there, but I would say Strat basketball. All right, well, I've taken enough time, I think, with all this, and remember, 235 to 365 licks to get to the center of a Tootsie Roll Pop. Leave a comment. We'll do this again sometime. Thank you so much, and hopefully a little higher energy for you. Have a good one, everybody. Thank you so much. So long.